Hey, thanks for joining me on the Life Podcast, where you guessed it, we talk about life. My name is Austin, and I'm so excited that you are tuning in today. This podcast exists to encourage you and walk alongside you as you experience life. So thanks for tuning in. Now let's get into today's episode. All right, welcome to the Life Podcast. Today is a special day for this podcast in particular. I'm super excited for the topic today, who's on the show. So before we get into it, I have with me my good friend, Sydney Moore. We kind of grew up together, and I've known her for, a long time. So Sydney, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about you and who you are.
Sure. So I went to school with Austin. I think I've known him since first grade.
Long time.
Yes. And then I'm really good friends with your wife. We've been friends, I think, since third grade. We played basketball together. Yep. And then after we graduated high school, we got, I feel like, even closer. So Kens and I are really close. I guess I'm on here because of my background, and Austin and I are friends. So yeah, I graduated last year. I went to Boise State, and I graduated with a bachelor's in social work, and then I graduated again this May with a master's in social work. So I guess my background is a little bit in social justice, mental health, conflict resolution, mediation, what else? Trauma and neuroscience.
Dang.
Yeah. Trauma and neuroscience, I would say, are more like my special interest. I'm like a nerd about it. I love neuroscience, anything. And then trauma, I wouldn't say that I'm an expert in it, but I probably have more knowledge than the average person.
Definitely more than I do.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
So, and then as of last week, I'm actually a licensed social worker in the state of Oregon. Wow. So that's exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And then I actually just started a job as a school counselor. So
nice.
That's a little bit about me and where I'm at right now in my life. And
yeah, you're accomplished. You're only 22. You got a bachelor's, master's, just landed a nice job.
Yeah.
And life seems to be going pretty well. That's awesome.
It is going really good.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming in, and I'm super excited for today's conversation. Let me just introduce this for you guys listening. We are going to be talking about mental health. The title of the episode today is this: Thriving in Chaos, a discussion on mental health. And I think that this is so relevant because we are living in the most chaotic times, at least in my 22 years of life that I can remember. These are the most chaotic times we've ever been a part of.
Strange.
Yeah, strange.
Weird. Yeah.
Any word you could think of. It's just,
in high school, did you read the book Fahrenheit 451?
No, I think there was a choice.
It's kind of about Big Brother and just government control.
No, that's 1984, isn't it? Or the one by George Orwell? Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's 1980 something.
Oh. Okay.
Are you sure you read that?
No.
Okay.
I read both, I think.
Oh, I only read one of them.
That's the one I'm talking about.
But I read the one about Big Brother. So I think I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I always get flashbacks to that.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh, this just seems surreal. So.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people actually make that comparison. Mm-hmm. But anyway, we are talking about this because there is so much chaos, drama, negativity, quarantine, and all this stuff. It has such a detrimental effect on the mental health of many people. We're actually seeing suicide rates rise. We've seen alcohol sales jump up. So people are experiencing things, and they are trying to cope with the tools that they have in their tool belt. And I really just want to talk to them today and let them know, listen, that there is hope for tomorrow. Give them some practical tools as to what they can do to improve their mental health, what they can do with their trauma, and things like that. But before we get into that, let me just kind of give you a couple definitions here. Mental health really includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects the way that we think, the way we feel, and how we act. And it also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. And many of us right now are stressed out. We are feeling the weight of the situation, not just in the U.S., but probably worldwide. Many people are experiencing some things, but especially in the U.S. with quarantine, all the racial injustice, all the closures, businesses are down, people are losing jobs. So there is just so much going around, and so many people are without hope. So Yeah, let me just, and then according to an International Journal of Medicine that I read, it says this, that studies indicate that the COVID-19 pandemic is associated with distress, anxiety, depression, insomnia among the general population. And then it said, I already mentioned this, but that the alcoholic beverage sales in the week ending in March 21st, that 55%, it jumped up 55% in that week compared to the same period of last year. So we know that people are trying to cope. They are hurting, and many have no idea where to turn and where to run. And Sydney, I thought with your background, with just getting to, with knowing you for so long, knowing what you're passionate about, knowing how you love to help people and walk them through, things in their life, I thought you'd be a great fit to come on and talk about this stuff. So if you're ready to get into it, I'm ready.
I'm so excited. I told Austin earlier, I feel like I'm on Joe Rogan. I'm nervous.
Yeah, don't be nervous. This is fun. This is going to be so good. And I believe that many people are going to benefit from what you have to say today. Yeah. So cool. Let me just ask you a couple questions then, and then we'll get on with the conversation. So just to start off, I just want to hear a little bit about you. So how have you ever had any struggles with mental health or mental health problems? And if so, how did you handle those things in your own life?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say I've probably always, what I'm going to talk about, I've always experienced, but it wasn't really until I went to college and started to become more self-aware and had the energy and the time and the mental capacity to really put effort into myself that I became, that these issues became, what's the word I'm looking for? I was aware of them.
Right.
And so I think, and some of them were new to college. So the first one is anxiety. Mm-hmm. I definitely have somewhat of general anxiety, a generalized anxiety, and then also just kind of depending on what's going on, it can get really, really exacerbated. So last summer, it was so bad before I was anticipating starting my internship and my grad program, and then was starting this new job. So just certain life events can really heighten it.
Right.
So anxiety, also just self-esteem, my body image, relationship with food. So all of those really go hand in hand. Anxiety. Oh, and then, so this was kind of new to college, but a lot of social anxiety, growing up in a small town.
Yeah.
I was very active. I had a lot of friends. I knew everyone.
Yeah.
I was very comfortable. So I went and did it. I always thought I was an extrovert.
Yeah, I always thought you were too.
Oh gosh. So I went to college where I didn't know anyone. And now I dread meeting new people. I'm a school counselor. So I need social work, relationships are so important. And it just gives me so much anxiety. And I just dread having to meet all the new teachers. Not that I don't want to, but it's just the fact that I don't know them. And I guess other ways that'll look for me is sometimes I will hang out with someone, even if it's a friend, and then I'll just think about that interaction all night. I can't sleep. I'll think about it for days. I'll think did I talk too much? Did I they asked me how I was. And I was if I saw someone in public and I wasn't expecting to see them and they asked me how I am, I'm just caught off guard. I'm I'm good, whatever.
Yeah.
And then I'll be oh, I didn't ask them how they were. Oh, I'm such a bad person. Why didn't I do that? I just overthink and analyze and pick apart my conversations. That was new for me in college. Or I don't know, maybe I had it before college. I just didn't know it, I guess. So I would say mainly those ones.
Yeah.
And then I guess emotional regulation and just identifying your emotions, controlling them, making good choices and not making emotional choices. That's definitely something I've always struggled, or that didn't come easy to me.
Right.
Was not making emotional choices. I would say I am a feeler. I totally feel my entire world, all my experiences, I feel it in emotions.
Right.
And so when I get really if I have very intense emotions, not making emotional choices, especially if I'm upset or sad or mad or irritated.
Yeah.
And then I guess one other way, just that I experience everything I talked about. That's specific to me because not everyone experiences this way.
Yeah.
I experience a lot of my mental health physically. So I've always had stomach issues. If you are my close friend, like
Yeah.
I just like, oh, Sydney doesn't feel good. Like, you know, that's just what I'm known for.
Yeah.
It's like an inside joke with all
Yeah.
my friends or my family. Like, I don't feel good. When I was younger, I used to throw up all the time. And so I did actually a ton of tests just to like rule out any like allergies. I did an endoscopy and a colonoscopy and just to make sure like nothing's like biologically wrong.
Yeah.
And nothing was. I was
Oh
like,
my gosh.
I thought it would be like food allergies.
Yeah.
And so my doctor and I are pretty sure that it's just IBS, not just, but that it's IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome. And it's essentially like you manage it through mental health and like a diet.
Yeah.
And so that's just something, especially over the past year, I've really became very aware of was like my mind and body connect. And so how I physically feel stress, how I physically feel anxiety, how I physically feel when I'm being triggered or angry or upset, and just how, like I said, I'm a feeler. So I really feel those emotions in my body.
Yeah.
Whereas like in high school, I never made that connect between my mind and my emotions and then my physical experiences. So
yeah, I think there's a lot of people that are experiencing some sort of mental health problem, whether it be anxiety, depression, anything that you mentioned, and yet they feel it in their physical body. Like I think that's probably, you're probably speaking to a lot of people right now. Let me ask you this: when COVID came about and when that all started, did any of your I guess problems heighten, or did you kind of maintain?
So at first, no, because I was coming to the end of my grad school.
Yeah.
So when COVID happened, I remember me and a bunch of my cohort friends, we were at just having dinner and drinks, and we got the email from our school saying, you know, classes cancel, all stuff. And I was just like, oh my gosh, thank God. Yeah. Hallelujah. Like, this is a blessing. It's like a snow day. This is the best day ever.
Yeah.
And like other people were so sad. I was like, not me.
Yeah. You're like, I ain't trying to go to class again.
Yeah. So it was the break that I felt like I needed and I deserved. And so in March, I actually moved home, and it was like amazing. Like to have, I mean, my whole life, I've always been go, 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 so many things. And like in college, I went to class full time, I had internships. This is the first year I didn't work or volunteer or have additional jobs because my internship was paid. So I didn't really have that need. But still, I've like always done so many things. And then I was in Boise, and I would like come to Oregon all the time because this is where my friends and family and like relationships are. And so when COVID happened, I moved home. And it was just like amazing. I mean, I would just lay outside in the sun and do nothing.
That's awesome.
And just like listen to the birds and the water, and like, cause we have a water fountain at my parents' house.
Yeah.
And just like the warm sun, and it was just so awesome. But a couple months later, I started to get so bored, and I developed really bad routine. Like what to me felt like no routine. And I know for like my mental health or just like my well-being and for me to like function at my best, I thrive in routines. I'm kind of like a type A personality. I like lists. So I started getting like really bad routines. And so that's kind of when I had to like make some changes, because I was like, had no motivation.
Right.
I was not having good self-esteem. I was spending way too much time on my phone. I wasn't like taking care of like my mind and my body and my spirit. I was having like stress in my relationship, and it's because I was so bored. Yeah. I've never, ever, ever like really had time off to never do something. I've always had summer classes or a job, or, you know what I mean? So, and I've went from doing 4 or 5 things at once to literally nothing. No class, no homework, no job, no volunteering. Nothing's open.
Just laying in the grass.
Yes.
Soaking up the sun.
Yeah.
Nice.
Pretty much. So, couple months in, the stress started to catch up, and I had to make some changes to get through. So
honestly, I can relate to that a little bit. When COVID started, my boss was like, does anybody want to take a voluntary layoff? And I was like, sure, because I had another job as well. So I wasn't too worried, and I wanted to make sure everybody else, that didn't have another job could still get paid. So I took some time off, but of course my other job wasn't as many hours, so I still had a lot of free time. And I was doing the same thing. I was staying up till like god awful hours in the night, and my routine was just so bad. And I remember I kind of went into the same sort of thing that you were describing, but probably not as intense as you experienced it, because I was still doing a little bit, still had a little bit of a routine. But yeah, I'm sure there are a ton of people who probably felt that exact way that you felt. Maybe they lost their job and they had a ton of time, or just things changed and they couldn't develop a routine, and maybe they're still in that routine and they don't know how to get out of it. They don't know what changes to make to help their, I guess, day get better. So let me ask you this: how did you sort of handle that? Whether it was in college and you were trying to figure out this new things that you were experiencing, or whether it was in the midst of COVID, how did you sort of maneuver getting yourself out of that state of mind?
So the first thing I would say, and I would recommend to anyone, is you just have to do something.
Yeah.
It almost doesn't even matter what it is. Just do something. Yeah. Because I'm definitely guilty of that. And you had talked about it, like with starting this podcast. You've talked about it for so long, but you never did anything about it.
Right. Thanks for listening, by the way.
Yeah, of course. But like I'm so guilty of that. Especially with like mental health or behavior changes, because those can be so hard. You talk about it, or you recognize that, my self-esteem is really bad. My body image of myself is really bad. It's really negative, but like you don't do anything about it.
Yeah.
So the first thing is literally just do something. It doesn't matter. You just need to try something.
Yeah.
And so what I did, I kind of did two things, and I've been on a journey of like self-improvement and mental health for a couple of years.
Yeah.
And it definitely helps that like my education is surrounded around that. So I didn't always have to like go out of my way to get more information for that.
You had the tools in your belt.
Insight. Yeah. And so the first thing that works for me is that I think about like what has worked in the past. Yeah. So like I think about a good day. What does a good day look like?
Yeah.
Or I think about a bad day. What does a bad day look like? I think about like what would my perfect day look like? Like how would I know I was having a really good day? What are the things that make me feel really good?
Yeah. Why don't you tell us what a good day would look like for you? Just for fun.
And I will. So that basically like turned into what my routine is. But I know I feel really good when I wake up at a set time in the morning.
Yeah.
And I know I feel really bad when I lay in bed and I'm on my phone for 2 hours. Like Instagram, online shopping, Snapchat, YouTube, whatever it is. Especially Instagram. Like you're just mindlessly scrolling.
Oh, yeah.
And that's something that I realized that I do when I have anxiety. I get on my phone and I just mindlessly scroll because it numbs your mind. So you're not aware of all the racing thoughts or all these like insecurities, or you're not analyzing conversations with people. And so or like if you're upset, I just get on and I scroll, and it just kind of like numbs my mind. So that's something I've realized in the past year, and really like the past 6 months.
Yeah.
And that's so like not healthy for me to like be coping that way. And so I know I feel really good when I'm meal prepping, especially because I have like kind of that mind-body connection. So I need to be feeding myself good food. If I'm eating poorly, I feel poorly. I'm having stomach issues. I don't feel good. I'm just not functioning well. Working out, especially in the morning. I have to work out in the morning or I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
And then something new that I implemented was a happiness journal.
Oh, cool.
So that has been awesome. So those are just like some things that I've thought about, or even just like self-care, like making sure that I'm showering.
Yeah, that's important.
Like, not that I don't shower, but like when you just lay in bed all day and then you don't get up, you don't shower, like or you get up, you go to the kitchen to get leftover pizza, and then you go back to watch Netflix. Like, that's not a routine.
Right.
So just like, I love having, I'm a nail biter.
Oh.
And so keeping my nail, again, I think that's like that anxiety. So keeping my nails like manicured, just kind of like, I love essential oils in my room or my space, my environment, my house, my workspace needs to be very clean. Everything needs to have a spot. So again, like making sure I'm cleaning, making sure that things are where they're supposed to be. Those are things that I know like set me up to feel in control, to feel motivated, to feel or just to like get me going to have a good day. And also when I do all those things, I feel very accomplished. Just as simple as I woke up at a decent time.
Yeah.
I did a journal, I exercised. I was spending time outside. So I'd spend however long outside. And then I was having a good meal that I was actually like making and preparing. It wasn't like a Hot Pocket or something. And so, then it's like, 10 or 11 and I feel so accomplished. And then I feel like I can do whatever I want with my day.
Yeah.
And I have the energy and the motivation to do whatever.
Right.
And then I would shower and then get ready and then go do whatever.
Yeah.
So, I guess just looking at like, what does a good day look like? What does a bad day look like? Or if like my problem was a routine fixed so much for me. And so, but maybe if you're struggling with like anxiety or depression or emotional regulation or like having conversations or just interpersonal relationship stuff, just reflecting on when did this go well, or when did I do a good job at this and what did I do? How can I replicate that? Or when it's going bad, what role am I playing that's contributing to that? So just identifying the good and the bad. The second thing, so I told you that I've started doing a happiness journal, which is so awesome. It's called the 52 Lists for Happiness. And it's actually, you're supposed to do it weekly, but like 52 weeks, that's like a whole year. Like I can't keep a routine for a whole year. Like that's probably not going to happen.
Right.
So I just did one a day and it was so awesome. Journaling's a great way to start your day or to implement some positivity, because your mind can't necessarily tell, like if you think of a memory, think of your best memory or one of your happiest days in your life. When you envision that, your mind can't tell that from like a real experience necessarily. So when you envision really awesome things, you produce like feel good hormones. Your body actually produces that as if you were really experiencing it. Yeah. Same with like bad memories or bad things. So kind of, wherever you're spending your mind or your mental energy, like that's going to dictate the rest of your day. So
that's huge.
Doing the happiness journals in the morning really helped, because it would just like provide a lot of positivity. I was having all the endorphins, just really great start to my morning, I guess. Yeah. And then some things that came out of that is it basically is like what I'm saying, when you reflect on what does a good day look like, a bad day, a good response to something, a bad response. The journal was kind of having me do that. And so it basically like, what are the things that make me happy? What are the things that don't? What are the good things in my routine and the bad things? Like social media, 2 hours on Instagram is so bad. Yeah. And so, and that really plays into like self-esteem and like comparing your relationships, comparing your body, comparing your life, your experiences, your friendships, all those things. So I limited social media.
Wow, you are really disciplined.
Well, okay, that was midsummer.
Okay.
I go through phases. I had to delete Instagram for a little bit because it was just so bad. But I think that's probably a universal, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that's a universal first step for everyone. Delete your social media, limit it to a set time in the day, like 4 to 4:30 or 30 minutes a day. Yeah. You cannot be on social media all day, even if it's your job, especially if it's your job. People, they set times and limits for their social media. Yeah. Like you cannot be on that all day. That is like the number one thing. That's so bad for your mental health.
I'm sure there are so many people right now that probably don't even want to check the screen time on their phone. I get a little notification every Sunday, and it goes like, it's like the first week of quarantine, it was like, your numbers were up like 400% this week. And I was like, oh my gosh.
I know. Even when I think I'm not, when I have work and then I get home and I have 7 hours on my phone, I'm like, how do I have 7 hours on my phone?
Yeah, seriously.
I've been at work all day.
Yeah,
what was
quotation
I doing?
Marks around that. Yeah, I feel you. That's crazy. I was actually going to ask you this question about social media, because social media, especially in today's day and age, plays a huge role in our mental health. What are some ways, besides, deleting the app, setting some screen time, but because we are going to be on it, there's no doubt about that. What are some ways that we can really filter all the information that we are hearing and that we're seeing and that we are reading? Because I can't tell you. I mean, I can scroll through my Facebook for 10 seconds and I can see 5 opposing viewpoints and, an argument in this comment section and a picture of somebody that I want to look like in this, feed. So how can I really filter all those things to navigate social media in a healthy way?
So managing social media, the first thing I would say is that you have to be honest with yourself. Like, how is it negatively impacting your life?
Yeah.
Maybe you're comparing your looks. Maybe you're comparing your, like the way the feed of your images or the color palette or how the good quality of it compared to someone else, or maybe it's your experiences, or maybe it's the negativity or like the politics of it. So just be honest with yourself. Like, how is it affecting you? Because I think a lot of us like to be in denial. Like, no, I'm not comparing my relationship. I'm not, right. I don't let it affect me. It doesn't affect my self-esteem. And then for me, I had to go through and unfollow people that I don't know.
Right.
Like, I'm going to unfollow all the places that I love to shop because I don't need to be seeing all these things that make me feel like I need to buy more, have more, or spend money, or like, oh, if only I have this item. Like, that's that's unhealthy. And so I had to unfollow, or you can like hide the feed,
right,
or hide the stories. So I did that. And then again, I did that with people that I don't know, like really beautiful girls with really awesome styles and like perfect photos and perfect experiences. Like, I don't know you. Like, if I'm being honest with myself, I'm following your lifestyle because or I'm following your page because it's enticing, or because it's like you have something that I feel like I want or that I need, or I want to like be you in some way.
Yeah.
So, but I don't know you. And so like the reality is I'm not following you. It's not doing anything for my mental health or for the quality of my personal life.
Yeah.
And so I unfollowed like type of influencer type people, or like local people that like I don't know. And I just really tried to keep my Instagram like more personal. And like with my job though, also I have to keep it private, and I kind of like filter who I let follow me and who I don't. If I generally know who you are, I'll probably let you follow me. But if I don't know you, like, no. Yeah. And then, using those tools like hiding and filtering.
Yeah.
Like hiding the stories and stuff. I don't have Facebook. So
well, Facebook's where all the good drama happens.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so you're already up one on the rest of us. That's
probably a different type of mental health with Facebook. But I think Instagram, like, just that, setting limits, right? So I think with Instagram, you get that mental health with like comparison.
Yeah, huge.
My life is less than, my looks are less than, my body is less than, especially in like the fitness community. And another thing I did is I followed people who are honest about body image. Because you get a lot of people that just post their best photos. And then when you follow people that are like real and authentic, they'll show you like, this is me posing, this is me before food, and this is me after, and they normalize how
I'm always the after picture.
Yeah.
All the time.
Absolutely. And stress will do that to you.
Yeah.
And then, the quality of food that you're eating, the hormones in your body, your mental health.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm sure a lot of people right now are the end of the day photo.
Bro, no lie. I like, not to like let it, I mean, okay, anyway, I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. I gained like 15 pounds during quarantine.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was still active. I was still like doing things, but I don't know how. I don't know if it's just because I'm getting older, but I literally gained 15 pounds. And I've always been like a super skinny guy, just could eat whatever, eat 4 Big Macs and way less probably. But now I gained 15 pounds, and my wife still says she likes me. So I'm cool with that. But I mean, it's weird.
Well, it's almost impossible to lose weight when you're stressed and when you have like cortisol in your body.
Yeah.
So I'm sure a lot of people are right there with you.
Yeah.
but again, and then it's like social media that makes you feel like you need to look a certain way.
Yeah.
And that you need to look that way all day long, and then like sitting down and standing up and bending over and exercising and pre-meal and post-meal. So I followed some people that were like authentic about their bodies. And I guess like for me, it's really inspiring to see to see photo and think like, oh, like, wow, like you look so good. And then you see another photo, it's like, oh, that's also your body. And not that you look any less, but like social media tells us the first photo is ideal and appealing. Right. And then to realize how deceiving it is because both images are the same person. So it's just all perception. So yeah, I would say that's kind of, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I did. I deleted it off my phone for a while.
Yeah. I think we've all done something like that. You're like, that's it, I'm done. And then 2 days later, your thumb needs to do something. So you got to download it again.
Yeah, that mindless scrolling, that's how I know I need to delete it. If I'm just like mindlessly scrolling,
right.
I'm like, okay, I'm numbing my mind because I'm having like a lot of emotions right now that I'm aware of that. Yeah. And so how can I deal with that like in a better way? So
right. I think a lot of us just like habitually will swipe to that app and click on it, open it for 2 seconds, and then like lock our phone again. I don't know if you do that, but like I've done that so many times. Like, what am I even doing on this? I've already been on it for this amount of time today. Like it's just crazy. So yeah. So you said be honest with yourself for one on social media, and then you kind of went in there and talked about comparison and things like that. So I think those are some real good tips that you've given as far as social media. And I will say that Facebook is kind of a different monster than Instagram, where Instagram kind of lends itself towards comparison. Facebook really lends itself towards people's opinions, and everybody is sharing something that they believe is right, something that they will not, digress on or whatever. And so it results in these arguments or hard feelings, or people are offended and whatever. So I don't know if you have any tips as to how to really filter out those voices, because people do have different opinions. That's not going to go away. That's gonna stay like that until we die. So how can I navigate those kinds of conversations or things like that? I don't know if you have anything to speak on that. Yeah. So,
well, I think empathy is so important, and I think our culture really teaches us to. And I'm just going to say, do as I say, not as I do. Yeah. Because I'm not always the best at this, especially when I'm passionate about things. But our culture really teaches us to argue and not to listen. And so that's actually one thing. When I started my mediation or my dispute resolution focus in college, I realized, oh my gosh, I'm 20 years old. No one's ever taught me how to listen. Right. How to actually listen and hear another person. Wow. And so, and I think it'd be really hard, especially right now with like the presidential election coming up, and a lot of like people feel like their rights are being taken away, or they feel very passionately about like some of these issues are social justice issues, and they're human right issues, and people and their religious issues, and their just human right issues. And so people feel very passionately about it. But I think having empathy, and which looks like this, having empathy in a conversation looks like trying to understand how that person came to that conclusion. Because I mean, especially some of these really more out there or more radical beliefs that we see,
which are typically the loudest voices.
Yeah, or they get the most interaction, or the most either one, it's fake. Like, is this a real person? Yeah. Who is this really coming from? But if it's like someone that you know or that you're aware of, and they have beliefs that are differ from yours, having empathy, which looks like trying to understand, I wonder how you came to that conclusion. I wonder why you believe that, or asking them questions to better understand, like, wow, like what you said sound like is really out there. Yeah. Or I've never heard someone share that belief before. Like how did you come there? Why do you believe that? Because some people, and it's not an excuse, like for people's actions. Like, understanding people doesn't necessarily mean that you can't hold them to higher accountability, but like we have to understand, where do we all get knowledge? Yeah. And so a lot of us, like, we're taught it in our homes, we're taught it in our communities, in our, like, if people who follow or identify with different religions, they have that community base, their homes, their schools, their, like, where does it look like from where they live? And so not necessarily to like not hold people to high expectations, but also just understanding like how we obtain our knowledge and our belief systems. Yeah. And then asking, like, well, that's that's a really interesting viewpoint. Can I share with you another perspective? I think that's like a great entryway. Like, can I share with you another perspective? Or can I share with you my experience?
Yeah. And I think that's really what it is. It is so experiential. Like, everybody, like you said, raised in a different household, raised in a different community group. Even if I were to go to the next town over from here, it's going to look very different for somebody. So,
or just the next house over, you know?
Yeah, true.
Like, everyone has their own experiences. And I think that really like dictates kind of their, or kind of like, for like, you know, if you don't go to college, or depending on what college you go to, you're going to have a different perspective.
Right.
You went to a Bible college. I went to a liberal college with a very social works, very like left wing, you know, or someone who went to Corvallis, or we're really big in ag here.
Right.
So you have like ag, or it just like everyone has their own, they bring their own perspectives to the table, and they were raised a certain way. So like some people we see a lot like with very like radical like white nationalists, which is,
say what you got to say.
or like if you think of like I don't know, like people like in like KKK or you know like you think like, oh my gosh, like that's so wrong, like how can you believe that? And that goes against so much of what I personally believe and value. But you have to have that empathy to see like
how they got to that conclusion.
Like you only know what you know.
Right.
That person was raised in a certain way. Like they might not have additional knowledge. They might not have additional perspective. They might not, like who do they surround themselves with? Like there's this thing called groupthink. Like if you're around, especially for me, I'm around all social workers. We all kind of think the same.
Right.
You leave a social work program, you go into the real world. Not everyone has those same values and beliefs and thoughts and perspectives as you. And so I guess like just understanding that and like trying to like separate the issue from the person, because it's just a belief. Good. Like, and they only know what they know, or they developed it somewhere, and to them it's right. Like to them, they truly believe that for some reason. So why do they believe that? But I would only do this like when it matters. Like pick and choose your battles. You don't need to like go that deep into things all the time. But if it's like a family member or a significant other or really close friends, you guys have different beliefs on things, like really trying to understand like, why do you think that? Here's a great example. My household watches Fox News 24/7.
Yeah.
And so my dad and I get into fights all the time.
Right.
But I never, and it's one of those things where I really react instead of like, again, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for me to step back and be like, oh, like what you said, I so do not agree with. I think it's completely wrong. And so I attack you personally for that belief instead of sitting back and being like, oh, I wonder where you got that from. Yeah. Probably Fox News, probably, you know. And it's like, oh, like you might, like this person might actually believe that's true and not have additional perspective. And if you want someone to have additional perspective, ask to share it or start that conversation. People love to talk, and people love to be heard. Yeah. So like, if you want to get your point across, you know, you have to, like, if I want you to hear what I have to say, I need to let you talk first. I need to make you feel heard. And then that way, like everyone's emotions are kind of calm and down. You're not in like an intense argument. And then that you'll maybe hopefully be receptive to additional viewpoint or perception that I want to share. Yeah. So building that empathy to understand, like, where did you get that? Why do you think that? And then when you understand that, then you can share like additional resources or news articles or like your opinion or experiences. And hopefully they'll be more open to that. So.
Yeah. I really love what you said. You said that we have to learn how to separate the issue or the opinion from the person. And I kind of talked about this a little bit in episode 2 of the podcast, where we, especially in westernized culture, we tend to group people with what they do, what they say, which don't get me wrong, from what we believe is really how we live our life. So I get there is a sense of, I think, correctness to that we can kind of group people in that way. However, we really let it define people. So if somebody watches Fox News, we're like automatically, oh my gosh, that guy's a conservative, probably loves Donald Trump, whatever. But as soon as we see somebody with a Black Lives Matter poster, we're like, oh, they're liberal, they love Biden.
Yeah.
Like we really group people that way. And I think that is so unhealthy, because I'm gonna say this, and if you don't disagree with me, that's fine, but I think that there are far more people that are in the middle, especially in America, because we've created this extremist society. You're either right or you're left, there's no in between. But I would argue that the majority of people in the United States fall somewhere in the middle, and you will never know that until you sit down and have a conversation with them and say, listen, I might not agree with everything you do. You might not agree with everything I do, but I've said this multiple times on the podcast too, that we have far more in common than we don't as human beings on planet Earth, and really letting that be a ground of unity, because I'm just so heartbroken, especially for all the division in our country right now. I know we're kind of getting off track, but gosh, there's just in a time where we're experiencing so much chaos and trauma, how beautiful would it be if we could put aside our political differences and say, you know what, there's people that are hurting. There's people who are without jobs. There are people who are dying innocently. There are all sorts of things happening. Yet I want to debate you about whether a fetus can be aborted at a certain amount of weeks. Like, are you joking me? And so I kind of went off on a tangent there, but I
absolutely agree with you. And I think like the neuroscience piece behind that though is that, like, historically in our like primitive days, if something's different than you, it's a danger. If it's not your tribe, it's a danger. And that's like our old brain kind of acting for us. And kind of like when we get into these arguments or we attack people that have like different viewpoints, that's our culture. But that's also like,
it's like a defense mechanism sort of.
Yeah, it's like our old brain like telling us like, you look different than me, you think different than me. You're not my group, you're not my crew, and so like you're a danger to me. And so like that's why like we just have to have that self-awareness and go like one step further than that, to really be able to like to not let our unconscious brain kind of like dictate all our behaviors. Like when you really start breaking down and asking yourself, well, why did I do that? Why did I do that? You know, always questioning or getting to know yourself. So much of our unconscious brain like dictates what we do.
True.
And so I think it's natural for everyone to kind of group. We like to be around people that are like us and similar to us, think like us, look like us. But again, like just challenging that, challenging the what's natural to us, pushing ourselves outside like that comfort zone. But I agree with you totally, having that unity or just finding more common grounds. But it's really hard when people don't have the same perception about things.
True.
Because like for me, some things, like for example, immigration is like a human rights issue to me, whereas someone else might not, they don't see it that way. They don't have that perception. They only see one side of the story. So they don't know, or they don't believe, or they don't trust the other side for the information that it can share. So
I think at the end of the day, it's about knowing that you did your part to, I mean, because you do want to try to understand people. So if you are actively trying to pursue, you know, what other people are saying, why they're saying it, and if they don't want to share or move on where they stand, then that's on them and that's not on you. So I think also a lot of something that lends itself towards mental health issues is this idea that we have all the control. And for example, when you get on Facebook and see something you don't like, you want to fix it, so you want to say something. But you have to understand that you cannot control another human being. And we just want, I mean, for anybody that has kids out there that's listening, I'm a recent dad. I've been a dad for about a year, and I am such a control freak. I want things to be nice and neat. Like I don't want my living room to have a million toys in it. I don't want to
everything needs to have a place.
What drives me absolutely bonkers is when my daughter grabs the remote and puts it in with her toys, and I go to watch TV later and I can't find it. So I have had to come to this understanding that, listen, I cannot control everything that a 1-year-old Ellie does. And that's okay, because she is learning, she is growing, and I am simply here and watching that process and helping her along the way. So I think giving up control in certain areas of our life will lead to a lot of liberty as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point. It makes me think back when you asked kind of like what you can do if you're trying to implement behavior changes or kind of bring some positivity or like increase your mental health or your mood. like Pinterest is amazing.
Yeah.
Pinterest or just YouTube, Google, just Google, whatever it is that you want to improve. But there's like journaling that you can do, or like worksheets. That's essentially that, where you list things that are in your control and things that are not.
Yeah.
And so then focus your time and your energy on what you can control. I can't control, what's on Instagram. I can't control what other people think of me. I can't control what other people say or do, but I can control the food I eat. I can control what time I wake up. I can control how I spend my time in my day. If I'm exercising, who I spend time with. I can control the words that come out of my mouth. I can control how I respond to my emotions.
Yeah.
And that's super empowering to take the time to list out what you can control. And it's really motivating and inspiring to like, okay, I can do this. This is where I can start. And the things that I cannot control. Yeah. It allows you to begin to like kind of let that go. So
yeah, wow.
Highly recommend that for everyone.
Yeah, seriously. You shared some super amazing practical things that we can do. I love hearing other people's experience and what they do, because I think it's so liberating to hear that there are other people who have been where we've been, who are experiencing the things we're experiencing and have made it to the other side or are still in the journey, and that is okay to be there. So yeah, I really appreciate that. A few more things that I do want to say. I always got to bring a biblical perspective to what we're talking about, because I believe that, following Jesus is very holistic. It's not just in this area of my life, it's not just on a Sunday, but the Bible.
Can I add something?
Yeah, go for it.
You just brought up holistic. So I wanted to add again with mental health. I also think like one size fit all doesn't work.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily like one thing only. I believe like to have the best life and the best mental health, it's like mind, body, and spirit. It's your environment. It's your social connections. It's everything. So it might be a mix of like at work you do at home. It might be a mix of like holistic approaches, religion or spirituality, or like Kinsey, your wife, is a big believer of essential oils, like massages, aromatherapy, like the food you eat, nutrition, exercise, yoga, in conjunction with maybe traditional therapy or like talk therapy, or more the holistic approaches I just mentioned, or maybe like dance or art, or like theater or acting. So more like motion type kind of therapy. Yeah. And then like journaling, things that you can do at home. Yeah. Like identifying what's in your control, what's not, the routines, those type of things. Just, I think everything plays a role, and you can't I wouldn't recommend just taking one approach. Right. Like just doing medication, just doing talk therapy, just doing, just reading your Bible. Like one thing is not enough. I mean, you could contribute that too in religion. Like just reading your Bible is not enough to really have that relationship with God, right? So it's like, it's in all parts of your life. So I would say that that translates into mental health as well. Yeah, definitely. And I think you said it best earlier that it's not one size fits all. And you shared before you even began telling us what you did. You said, this is what I do. This isn't what is going to work for Tiffany next door, but this is what you do. So it's really about knowing who you are, knowing what works for you and whatnot. So thanks for sharing that. I will say, when it comes to mental health, the Bible talks a lot about things like peace, things like joy, which are quite the opposite of what we're experiencing today, right? We're experiencing anxiety, we're experiencing depression, we're experiencing all these traumatic and chaotic events. And the good news is that there were people in the Bible who experienced a ton of traumatic and chaotic events, yet came out on the other side. And there's a couple scriptures that I just want to share that I think will help you guys and in your own mental health journey as well. You've probably heard this verse, but it's in Philippians 4:6-7, and it's Paul speaking from a prison cell, actually. He's telling people this as he is in the middle of the fire. He says this: "Be anxious for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and then the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus." And I think many of us are experiencing anxiety. But what's crazy to me is, like I said, Paul is writing this letter that we read in the Bible from the bottom of a wet, cold, damp, dark prison cell, and is saying, be anxious for nothing, but in all things, make your requests known to God. And here's the deal. God is not going to help us in an area
unless we make it known to him, unless we say, you know what, God, I'm giving this up and I am letting you do what only you can do in my life. And it's kind of that control thing.
And admitting that this is an area that I need help in, or acknowledging that it's not working out for you.
Yeah. And you said, be honest with yourself. And this is one of those things that unless I'm honest with God and said, God, I have extreme anxiety right now. I need your peace that surpasses all understanding. God's not going to give it to you until you ask for it. And not that God can't do it if you don't ask for it, but I'm saying that this scripture is literally saying, make your requests known to God. And when he knows them, when you've come to him and are ready for what he can do, then he will do that. And he wants to give us that peace. It doesn't say that he only gives it because you're asking, but it's saying, no, he wants to give it to you. Like that is for anybody who believes in Jesus and has hope in Jesus. Another scripture is Galatians 5:22. It talks about the fruit of the Spirit, which belong to anybody who professes their faith in Christ and who believes in Jesus and says they have the Holy Spirit inside them. It says the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. How many of us would like to experience those things that aren't currently experiencing those things right now? Maybe you're a Christian and you're listening to this, and maybe you're not. But let me tell you this, that Jesus offers us things that we cannot find on earth. He offers us peace that surpasses understanding in the midst of COVID-19. When you lost your job, when you don't know how you're going to make your next paycheck, God offers you peace. He offers you joy in the midst of, like where Paul's at right now, in the midst of being in a prison cell as he's writing this letter. And so I just think that that if you are in need of something, and I am not in any way negating anything that you said, Sydney, because I think everything that you said was awesome and fantastic. But I believe that there's also a spiritual side to these things as well. It's not just if I do it, it'll happen. But I really do believe that God will intervene supernaturally and make something happen. So if you are out there and you are experiencing depression and anxiety and other mental health struggles, I highly encourage you, if you're a believer, you can do this. If you don't believe in God, then you can just maybe take a note of this. But I highly encourage you to make your request known to God. Say, God, I have depression today. God, I feel anxious today. God, I need help regulating my emotions. Like God doesn't think that's silly for you to ask him. He wants you to make all things known to him, not just the big things that we think matter, but all things. God cares about the most minute detail of your life and wants you to thrive. Many of us believe that God doesn't want us to have a good life, but God really does. He cares about us beyond what we can fathom. So anyway, that's my little biblical spiel that I always got to give because it's got to be said. So Sydney, we are about out of time today, but I appreciate so much.
Maybe a little over.
Yeah.
That's okay.
That's okay. This is the longest podcast so far, and I'm okay with that. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing
awesome.
your wisdom and your experience. I enjoyed hearing it, and I'm sure that everybody at home is going to love hearing it. So thanks for showing up. And guys, if you are listening to this, make sure that you share the podcast, subscribe to it on the podcast app, Spotify. We're on Google Podcasts. Make sure you share it on Instagram. We're going to be on YouTube. So make sure that you guys are leaving a rating as well, because that always helps me and boost the podcast as well. So thanks for listening today. Sydney, you've been awesome to have, and I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thanks, Austin.
Yeah. Have a good day, guys.